We are talking House Shark from 2017, and this is written and directed by Ron Bonk. And we've seen plenty of silly comedy B-movie shark movies along the lines of Sharknado, Snow Sharks, etc. Here we have House Shark. Now this is a low budget, originally I think semi-crowdfunded movie, which is clearly a parody of the original Jaws movie with lots of homages to other pop culture references and projects and things. The story focuses on this guy Frank who has a house shark in his house that kills his babysitter one night, and as such he is unable to go back into the house, and he ends up teaming up with a scientist and a kind of Abraham Lincoln style hunter, is the best way I would describe it, and the three of them venture into the house to face the house shark. And yes, you do get an origin about how the house shark came to be. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let us get started. What works in this movie's favour? I will say, as a preference, I'm not a massive fan of the kind of sillier, over-the-top shark movies. I do enjoy a shark movie, but I've never been a huge fan of the more zany ones that we've got. I think probably because we've got too many at this point. So what do I think about House Shark? Now I know this is certainly a very low budget movie. And I will say, when the movie started, I actually kind of quite liked the fact that they really steered quite a lot into like spoof or parody territory. So this isn't a movie which is trying to take itself even semi-seriously. It's very much a silly comedy movie, and it knows it. You know, its tongue is firmly in cheek, and the idea here is being lots of kind of parodies of mainly kind of Jaws, but also, as I say, lots of other kind of films and TV shows and things. And there's lots of kind of gross out humour, lots of sort of over the top, albeit low budget kind of VFX. And I thought, do you know what? Maybe this movie will be quite fun. I thought the kind of the beginning of the movie with this babysitter, who you get, you know, a long naked scene is what I'll say. You know, it was quite sort of fun, and I thought the kind of the tone of the movie, okay, there's going to be quite a lot of kind of like gags here and there that are interspersed, like the kind of the, you know, loads of snot coming out of this guy when he's crying and stuff. So I thought the movie started off relatively well. And when the movie has these sequences that involve the actual house shark itself, they're mostly quite fun. I mean, the house shark is literally by the looks of it, some type of paper mache creation. And again, we're kind of going into this knowing that it's a very, very low budget B movie, and you know, we can kind of expect this, but it's still kind of quite fun. And obviously, because it is obviously such a silly sort of concept, you can't help but kind of like its kind of goofiness and kind of craziness. I even quite like some of the characters to a point. Our main character Frank, I thought he's like an ex-cop, and you know, he looks like he had a good relationship with his son. And even though these characters are taken as kind of like parodies and spoofed and stuff, you still kind of got, okay, they still kind of got me on side of the character. And yes, even though it's obviously a very zany film, very silly film, you know, you still sort of kind of like this kind of character and kind of behind him, and you can kind of root for him to a degree, despite the kind of the silliness that's going on around it. So that was all sort of fairly good. And there is an instance here where we've got a reasonable amount of kind of like fun, practical VFX. They're not high tech. I mean, it's not like Terrifier or anything like that with realistic gore, but it's kind of fun and silly and schlocky, and you can kind of enjoy the kind of the silly, wonky kind of VFX here. But let's now transition to what doesn't work. And although I think this movie started off well, for me, my goodwill quickly disappeared. Why? Two reasons. Number one, This movie is way too long. I mean, it's nearly 2 hours. This needed to be 70 minutes. You've got, obviously, this is an instance where you've got one guy in charge, you know, Ron Bonks, unwilling to cut stuff. And it's a tale as old as time with these kind of low budget films. You know, you've got one man's vision without kind of like producers saying, you know, maybe this isn't as good an idea as it could have been. And as such, they're unwilling to make cuts to make the movie more palatable for people outside of who it's involved for. And the movie is just way too long. The jokes are way too extended and ultimately become unfunny. And the second point, which kind of goes hand in hand, how is it so long? What's this movie filled with? Lots and lots of talky scenes. The house shark pops up here and there, particularly towards the end. But there is way too many scenes of mainly these three guys talking. And what makes it worse is that they're kind of putting on, or two of them are putting on these kind of like sillier accents. And it gets to the point where it's actually annoying. It actually annoys you having to kind of listen to these people with very lengthy dialogue sequences. And they're not really talking about anything. It's not like drama. This is comedy. So they're just chatting shite, to be quite frank. And, you know, the kind of the jokes, they're just not paced well. Yes, I think the movie started off reasonably well, but that soon changes to like very extended sequences with jokes that are being far too overplayed, or people just chatting a load of old bollocks. And it's like, oh God, you know, when's this movie gonna end? And that's my transition through this film. I thought, oh, do you know what? Maybe this will be surprisingly entertaining when I kind of first watched it. To, oh my God, when is this movie going to end? Because it's just dragging and dragging. Even the kind of, as we got towards the end and we see more of the house shark, at that point my interest in this movie had really evaporated, and I didn't even care, even though it is, you have some kind of quite fun scenes where, you know, it's sort of underwater sequences at the end of the movie, which are kind of quite fun in a low budget rent way. But I didn't care at that point in the movie. I think there's some very misjudged humour here. The characters that are the two sort of like helpers, which are obviously meant to be, you know, the kind of the three characters from Jaws. They're just, you know, over the top. They're too similar. They're both of them are kind of putting on silly accents, both kind of over the top and kind of hyperactive, and it's just not funny. It's just not funny. Yeah, it's you know, it outstays its welcome big time at this film. You know, it has the occasional moment of levity still, where it has a little bit of a, you know, reference to Star Wars or Predator or something. But as I say, the bulk of the story here is just a little mind-numbing, and it's so goofy, so silly. You know, with humour, it's obviously somewhat subjective. You know, I quite like the kind of the goofy, spoofy stuff to a point, but I think you need to mix it up and have a little bit of highbrow humour here and there, mixed in a few jokes that are going to hit different kind of levels, and the movie doesn't really do that. And as such, I found this movie incredibly tedious. As I say, had this movie been cut down to a leaner 70 to 80 minutes tops, I think this movie could have been digested and been quite a fun film. But it really loses that fun factor, and that's the main issue with this one. It really loses that fun factor and becomes tedious and annoying. So for me, it's a 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Please do leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time.